It started as a harmless game. I swear, none of us thought it would turn into this. We were just a bunch of college kids, sitting around the fire deep in the woods, sharing ghost stories. Someone had brought a bottle of whiskey, and we were passing it around, feeling bold, laughing off the cold. Then Evan, the skeptic of the group, leaned forward, his face lit orange by the flickering flames. "Let's make it interesting," he said. "No more cheap horror stories. Let's tell one that's real." We chuckled, but he wasn't joking. He reached into his backpack and pulled out an old, leather-bound journal. The pages were yellowed, brittle at the edges. "I found this in my grandpa's attic," he explained. "It's filled with weird, handwritten stories. But this one is different." He flipped to a page near the middle and began reading aloud. The first clue. The story wasn't anything special at first. It was about a group of friends, just like us, who went camping in these very woods. They sat around a fire, just like us, telling ghost stories. And then, one of them disappeared, vanished into thin air. Evan read, his voice unusually steady. 1 second he was laughing, and the next he was gone. The group in the story searched for him all night, but there were no footprints leading away, no sounds in the darkness. It was like he had never been there at all. Then Evan paused. "Wait, that's weird," he muttered. He held the journal closer to the firelight, squinting at the faded ink. "It just says, they kept reading." I frowned. "What does that mean?" Evan flipped the page. The handwriting changed, jagged, erratic, like someone had scribbled in a hurry. "Do not continue the story. If you are reading this aloud, stop now." The air around us seemed to tighten. "Dude, cut it out," Sophie said, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "You're just trying to freak us out." Evan gave a nervous laugh. "I swear this is what it says." He hesitated, then looked at us, eyes glinting in the firelight. "Should I keep going?" Someone said no. Someone else said yes. But Evan had already turned the page. The second clue. The moment they read the warning out loud, they were no longer alone. The fire crackled loudly, too loudly, like the sound had been amplified somehow. They didn't realize it at first, Evan continued, but there were more of them now, one more than before. Something shifted in my stomach. They only noticed when one of them asked, "Who's the guy in the hoodie?" Sophie inhaled sharply. "Okay, I don't like this game anymore." I turned to glance around the circle. The fire cast long shadows across the trees. The flickering light made faces shift and blur, but I could still see everyone. Evan, Sophie, Mark, Jen, and then there was someone else. The hoodie man. He was sitting at the far edge of the circle, his hood pulled low over his face. His hands rested on his knees, fingers too long, too thin. My throat tightened. "Evan." He kept reading. By the time they noticed the extra person, it was already too late. I grabbed Evan's arm. "Stop reading." He looked up at me, confused, but then his eyes flickered past my shoulder. His face paled. He saw him too. Sophie let out a strangled noise. Mark cursed under his breath. None of us had seen him arrive. None of us had felt him sit down. But he was there, and he was listening. The firelight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the trees. No one spoke. No one moved. The man in the hoodie sat perfectly still, his head slightly tilted, as if he were listening intently. Who the hell is that?" Sophie whispered. Evan slammed the journal shut. His hands were shaking. "I don't know." Mark was already on his feet. "Dude, this isn't funny. If one of you invited some random guy out here, it's not a joke anymore." But none of us had invited him, and none of us had seen him arrive. A presence that shouldn't be there. "Hey," Mark said, his voice tight. "I'm talking to you." The hooded figure didn't respond. Something was wrong with his posture. His spine was too straight, his hands too still, like he wasn't breathing. I swallowed hard. "We should go." No one argued. Sophie grabbed her backpack. Jen reached for the flashlight. Evan stuffed the journal into his hoodie pocket. We turned away from the fire, moving quickly toward the trail. That's when we heard it. A whisper, low, garbled, like the sound of someone trying to speak underwater. "You forgot the ending, the rules of the story." We froze. The whisper hadn't come from behind us. It had come from inside the circle. I turned my head, just enough to see the fire. The hooded man was still sitting there. Only, he wasn't sitting anymore. He was closer. No sound, no movement. But he was suddenly on the other side of the fire, his body flickering in and out of the light, like a bad reception on an old TV screen. Then I saw the journal. It was no longer in Evan's pocket. It was on the ground, next to the fire. The pages fluttered open, as if an unseen hand was flipping through them. You forgot the ending. The voice was clearer now, and it wasn't just one voice. It was many, layered over each other, speaking in a twisted, overlapping echo. The wind died. The fire stopped flickering. The entire forest fell paused. And then Evan did the worst possible thing. He turned back, and he looked. The moment you look, it sees you. I wanted to scream at him to stop. I wanted to grab his arm and drag him away. But I couldn't, because the moment Evan turned back, the hooded man turned too. His hood slipped back, revealing a face that wasn't a face at all. A blur, like someone had smudged his features with an eraser. A shifting, pulsing void, as if something was trying to form a face but couldn't quite get it right. Evan made a strangled noise and staggered backward. The journal snapped shut. The wind rushed back, and the fire died. Total darkness. The ending no one wants to hear. Chaos. Flashlights clicked on. Feet stumbled over roots. Run, someone screamed. We bolted. I don't remember the exact way we ran, only that the trees blurred past, branches clawing at our clothes. The trail should have been straight, but it twisted, stretched, turned us in circles. The whispers followed us. Close, right in our ears. You forgot the ending. You forgot the ending. You forgot. We burst out of the woods, gasping, collapsing against Evan's car. The headlights cut through the night, and for the first time, I felt safe. We threw ourselves inside, locked the doors. Evan turned the key. The engine roared to life. Sophie was sobbing. Mark was shaking. Jen just kept whispering, over and over. He wasn't real. He wasn't real. And then we saw it. The final warning. The journal. It was sitting on the dashboard. None of us had brought it with us. None of us had touched it. And yet there it was. The cover was open. The final page had been written in fresh ink. And it only said one thing. The story isn't over until someone finishes it. We never spoke about that night again. We burned the journal. We moved on. Or at least, we tried to. Because every once in a while, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I swear, I can hear a whisper. You forgot the ending. Part 3. The story that never ends. For weeks after that night, we pretended life was normal. We never spoke about the journal. Never talked about the thing in the woods. But deep down, we all knew the truth. The story wasn't over. The first sign, Evan's disappearance. It started with Evan. He was the one who had read the journal. The one who had seen its pages flip on their own. And he was the first to go. It happened on a Tuesday morning. His mom called us, asking if we'd seen him. His car was still in his driveway. His phone was on his nightstand. His shoes were by the door. The only thing missing was him. And on his bed, someone had left a note, scrawled in ink, in handwriting that wasn't his. You forgot the ending, the shadows and the firelight. A week later, Mark saw something outside his window. He called me at 2:13 a.m., his voice shaking. Dude, I swear to God, there's someone standing by the fire pit in my backyard. I sat up, my heart pounding. What do you mean someone? I don't know, he whispered. They're just standing there, not moving. Did you call the cops? His voice cut off. Silence. Then a rustling sound, and a whisper. Not from Mark, from the phone itself. You forgot the ending. The call dropped. The next morning, Mark was gone. His front door was locked. His car was in the driveway, and in the ashes of his backyard fire pit, someone had written something in the burnt wood. 3 words. You forgot the ending. The last one left. One by one, they all vanished. Sophie, Jen. Each time, no sign of struggle, no forced entry, just gone. And each time, a message was left behind. The same words, the same warning. And now, I'm the last one left. I don't sleep anymore. I don't answer my phone, because every night, I hear the whispers, getting closer, waiting for me to listen, waiting for me to finish the story. And maybe that's the only way out. Maybe if I write the final words, this will all stop. Maybe. The ink smears here, like the writer was interrupted. The rest of the page is empty, except for one last sentence, scrawled in different handwriting. You forgot the ending. Final question for the listener. What if the story isn't just a story? What if by listening to this, you became a part of it? And what if you just heard your name whisper behind you?